Welcome to On the Chain.
Really interesting. They've got it queued up in around the 5-minute mark, 5:40, I think it is. He has some really interesting things to say about his perception of where the case is going. So let's play this. Ready, Chip?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Following the case, the SEC sued Ripple in 2020 for allegedly raising money by selling its XRP token.
No, did they? Did they sue him?
Which the agency said should have been registered as a security. You recently won access to some documents.
They should have a sound effect when they say, they said Ledger's a security. Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
There we go.
And you recently said that man.
Okay. Speed it up.
You were seeking. Both sides have also asked for summary judgment. So maybe give us kind of an update.
State of the state.
The state of the state. Where do things stand, and what's the significance of where we're at?
Well, it's great to be here. It has certainly been a busy couple of years. As you said, the SEC first filed a lawsuit against Ripple and actually myself and Chris Larson in December of 2020. So it's been almost 2 years. And, look, I think at the beginning of this, we actually made the public statement that, this isn't just about Ripple. This is really about the whole industry. And I think at the time in December 2020, people were like, no, it's not about the whole industry. Today, I think everyone acknowledges how important this is for the U.S. and the U.S. leadership around crypto. This is obviously, I think everyone would agree now, a pretty bellwether case.
Chip, I think, starts out strong, right? And think about where he was 2 years ago and what he was saying and referencing, that he came out right away and they said, this is a case about crypto. It's not just SEC v. Ripple. It's not about Ripple. It's not necessarily about XRP, but it's very specific to, this is about crypto. This is the SEC against crypto. And, kind of like, how they looked at Amazon. They said, you're never going to succeed selling books online. It's almost the same thing. They're looking at Brad Garlinghouse and basically saying, you're crazy. This isn't about crypto. It's just about you, and what's turned out. There we go. Let's check it out.
Where the case stands now is both sides, the SEC and Ripple, have filed motions for summary judgment, which basically means, hey, we don't think we need a trial. This isn't a question about the facts. It's a question about the law. We think the law is very clear, and that the judge, those will be fully briefed in front of the judge by mid-November, and then the judge will take as much time as the judge wants to take to make that decision.
There's something really poignant that's going to be coming up here in a minute.
A question about the fact. It's not a question about the facts. A question about the law.
The law.
That stood up. Well, the facts. There are facts in the case. But I do get what he's getting at. It really comes down to the law. And was there a violation? Negates. There was no violation.
All right, let's continue.
One thing you commented on that I think is worth spending 1 second on, the judge. So there's some notes associated with for the crypto industry, a very well-known speech that Bill Hinman gave in June of 2018. And in this speech, he said that ETH I'm paraphrasing, but ETH perhaps had been a security, but had transitioned to not be a security because of its decentralization. And, that's not actually what the law says. What the law says, there's no mention in the Howey test about decentralization, but that speech was really, really important. And the judge now, over the last 18 months, has ordered the SEC to turn over the notes associated with that speech 6 times. So the recent discovery ruling that went our way is just the 6th time. And the only reason I mention that is because the SEC obviously celebrates disclosure. It celebrates transparency. Why can't we do the work as the SEC and as a federal government to actually define and provide clear rules of the road? And if we had those, I think everyone would actually, the industry in the U.S. could thrive, much more easily than what we're dealing with now.
Chip, that he made some really solid points there. He's referencing the Howey test. He's saying that the Howey test there's nowhere in any of that, the points of the Howey test that reference decentralization, doesn't reference cryptocurrency, and even the way the SEC goes about it, and we talked about this with Deaton the other night, the prongs of the Howey test. They even got those wrong.
Got those
They
wrong.
only
Yeah.
used
Well,
one
the other thing too
component
is,
of one prong.
and the fact there's got to be a contract too. If you go to the securities laws, it's like, I know they made up this cute little test and everything. I'm not a big believer in it. It's still interpretation of 33 and 34 securities laws. I know it talks about the scheme and counting on the efforts of others, but that's all Gary talks about. The problem is you need all four of those present for it to be a security. And the bottom line is, Jeff, we have to really go back to that when this thing first dropped, almost 2 years ago, when you and I we were doing a weekly show, and that's when we started streaming pretty much all the time. We started streaming every night just to try to get ahead of this. And we looked at it, and we're like, this is what? None of it really made a lot of sense. And who can write 80 pages of nothing without even alleging fraud? It's just really ridiculous. Who thought we'd be this close, this far in?
So now when we continue through this, Brad has got some really, again, every step of the way through this, very poignant remarks. And so, like I said, we'll get up to about the 5-minute 40, something like that. And that's kind of that'll cap things off that, we can kind of get to a moment. So hang on.
So in kind of the order that you were talking about, are you expecting that to help even in the case of summary judgment, or is this more of something that you're looking to help in the slim chance that the judge denies those motions and this goes to trial?
Well, I think the question we're asking is, what are they trying to hide? What is it in these notes that they have been ordered 6 different times to turn them over to us, and we still don't have them? Each time they've, filed appeals or, new derivations of attorney-client privilege. And, so for me, as much as anything, it's what is in these notes that they are so committed to not sharing with the world. And look, I think most people who look at this situation, I have no idea.
Chip, what do they have to hide?
Everything, Jeff. 6 times you're there's something to hide, right? They're worried about something. There's something in that one of those emails is like, oh, this isn't going to go over so well, especially if it's something like, well, what about this current? Like John Deaton said it the other night. He's like, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about Cardano? And what about XLM? And what about XRP? So if those were up for something the best part about this whole thing is that the SEC is kind of like, when a kid does something wrong, be like, teacher's like, where's your homework? It's like, I don't know, my dog ate it. And it just sounds silly. But the SEC was arguing one point that they had attorney-client privilege. And they're like, well, if it's attorney-client privilege, then it was an official statement of the SEC. They're like, no, it wasn't. It's like, just constantly on every side of it. And you're like, okay. And the judge even got frustrated a bunch of points, like, hey, you got to be faithful to the law, not too faithful to trying to win a case here. But this is they fought it up and down 2 different ways, 3 different ways. It's insane. And I'm excited because we're getting to the end of it. So is this where Brad talks about the
this
is when it might
yeah, we're getting closer, as he kind of goes through this. And I love that expression too. He's just like, what are they hiding? What is this? I don't know. And
probably
they must
nothing,
know.
Jeff.
Right?
They're probably not hiding anything important, I'm sure. That's why 6 times later.
Yeah, we're not going to listen. We're not going to pay any attention. They keep filing motions. So let's hear. Hang on.
I can't wait. I hope we get to see them. We'll find out. I hope. But if you step back and just think about this from the big picture, at the time, XRP, and people forget this, but at the beginning of 2018, before that speech, XRP was the 2nd most valuable digital asset after Bitcoin.
I didn't forget.
And then,
so this is really important. The next minute plus, this is just, he starts hitting it out of the park, and this kind of solidifies everything and everything that we talked about Sunday with John Deaton, and to hear Brad Garlinghouse now referencing all this stuff. And here he is. What I find the most poignant, Chip, is that they're not at Fannie Mae. At this part of the conference. They're in DC. They have some key political people that are there at the event, like Maxine Waters, who stalled and held this thing up, and are somehow, I don't want to say in collusion, but in concert with what Gary Gensler is doing. And you know that, these guys have been, talking, discussing, planning.
I mean,
The SEC kind of anointed ETH, and ETH obviously has benefited from that. And
Wait a minute.
anointed. You are now anointed. You are
anointed.
Eve.
Oh.
Anointed. Anointed. Oh, it's like anointed. How did I miss that last
Oh my
time?
God.
You
This
have
is
been
great.
anointed.
You've been anointed.
You, good sir, ETH, you have been anointed. Take your staff and your anointment oil and
Oh my
get
God.
on with your bad self.
Here we go.
And then not too much long, another year and a half later, the SEC filed a lawsuit against Ripple asserting that XRP is a security. And the nuances and the distinctions between, is something adequately decentralized to make it not a security, which again isn't what the law says. And again, I'll digress and maybe pontificate for 1 second. I think we all have to remember the SEC only has the power that Congress gives it by.
Hang on.
True story.
Hang on. Hang on a second. 503, 502. All right. Chip, this is important.
Let's
Ready?
listen. Let's go.
Is something adequately decentralized to make it not a security, which again isn't what the law says. And again, I'll digress and maybe pontificate for 1 second. I think we all have to remember the SEC only has the power that Congress gives it by statute, right? They don't just get to go and take power. Congress gives them that power. And in this case, it's the 1933 Securities Act that says, here you have to have an investment contract. And then eventually there was something called the Howey test, which we can talk about if it's
ridiculous.
Chip, they
Howey
can't
test is
just
dumb.
take the power. They can't just take the power, right? They're granted power.
Well, they are granted not even necessarily power. They enforce what the existing laws in the books are. The existing laws in the books are murky at best, what Brad's basically saying here. So how can you enforce something that's it's not even clear? So,
All right, here we go.
Roof.
in the weeds, but interesting maybe.
We want to get into the intricacies of the
Georgetown law professors will find it very interesting, and yeah.
That's true. So are you getting any indication of when, this lawsuit will be concluded, when you'll get some sort of resolution?
Uh-oh, Chip.
Come on, man. You're just making me wait for it. I want to hear what he says. Next week.
That's all we have for tonight. Tune in next week for
hey
the
now.
final conclusion.
Big tease, man. The big tease.
All right, here we go. Let's play this. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
Drum roll, please.
So I do think it'll be fully briefed in front of the judge by mid-November. Federal judges work at their own pace. And, I think it's very hard to predict. Maybe optimistically, you're talking about 3 to 4 months. Pessimistically, you're talking longer than that. I generally have tried to guide when people ask internally at Ripple, I kind of say, look, I think we'll have an answer the first half of next year. Whether that's the first quarter or second quarter, we shall see.
And at this point,
There you go, Chip. That is the official statement. What I like, November, and then the first half of next year. So whether it's Q1 or Q2, he feels fairly confident, not 100% based on the judge, obviously based on if there's any more shenanigans with the SEC. The one thing he also knows, Chip, is that guess what's happening in November that'll take place in January of 2023 is that we will for sure have a switchover within Congress. There's going to be a changing of the guard, so to speak, and things and the climate will be a little bit different over there. But regardless of that, the trend, the direction everything is moving in is right there, Chip. Q1 to Q2.
Yeah, I mean, I think John Deaton said like March timeframe area, and that's right on the cusp of right at the end of Q1. But again, this is such a monumental case. You really want the judge to get it right. So I'm okay if it takes, it takes a little bit more time. And no matter what happens anyway, either way, it's going to be appealed. It doesn't, but if she says to the SEC, go pound sand, well, then it doesn't matter if it's appealed because the green light will be open. And as far as everyone knows, it's business as usual.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.